Winnipeg Jets trade talks are really starting to heat up and escalate as a brand new report has dropped from Elliot Friedman revealing a big Winnipeg Jets trade update, and he shed some light into what the Jets are planning to do as the deadline approaches, and one specific target that has been named has Jets fans fired up. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jets content, and over at Hattrick HQ, daily NHL content. We're getting fairly close to 1,000 subscribers over here, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. And over on Hattrick, we're on the road now to 11,000, so thank you guys for your continued support, and thank you for allowing us to hit 10K over there, 10,000 subscribers, that is. But there's a lot to go over today. The Winnipeg Jets coming off of a brutal loss last night, and trade deadline is inching closer and closer, about a month and a half away, 6 weeks or so, and these are going to be a very important 6 weeks for this Winnipeg Jets team. And you can see here, Elliot Friedman dropped a report giving some information surrounding what the Jets will be looking for, and then there's been a lot of rumors circulating surrounding a player you saw in the intro and the thumbnail, but you can see this here. Elliot Friedman thinks they may be looking for a center as well as a defenseman. Now, we've been talking about what kind of players for a while now that they may be looking for. Obviously, we'll dive into the defense group here in a minute, but you can see this here report from the fourth period. A guy they've been linked to for a while is Rasmus Ristolainen. You pair that with the report from Elliot Friedman about what they're looking for. Darius, the Jets might make a big splash similar to what they did last season with, of course, Tyler Toffoli, Sean Monahan. They might make another splash this offseason, or this trade deadline, sorry.
And it makes sense, right? If you look at what Elliot Friedman's saying, it looks like they want either a center or a defenseman. Makes perfect sense. We've been talking about this for weeks already, that this is exactly what this team needs if they are going to shore up both positions at the trade deadline. So that checks out. And obviously with Rasmus Ristolainen, I mean, he's a right shot defenseman. He's a big body, and he plays for the Philadelphia Flyers, of course. So, he's turned a corner in his career a little bit in the last little while. And obviously this is a player that the Jets have been targeting for quite some time at this point, as the fourth period alluded to, and other reports have alluded to as well, that they have been looking for his services for quite a while, and they could add another defenseman. We've been talking about it the last couple of weeks. They could use another right shot defenseman, or just another defenseman in general, because Logan Stanley at times, the hockey IQ, not really there. And do you want him in the lineup for the playoffs? I don't even know if he's in the lineup in the playoffs right now, even with the way that Hayden Fleury's been playing, for example. So, there's a lot going on, but again, they need to shore up one more player on their defense core, and I think a center. And Rasmus Ristolainen, when it comes to the playoffs, that's the type of player that a lot of teams might want.
Yeah, and some Jets fans aren't happy with this report. You can see this here. Logan Stanley, Rasmus Ristolainen would feed families of opposing teams for years to come, which I think is a little bit harsh. Logan Stanley has been really bad. Rasmus Ristolainen's having a decent year, put up 12 points already this year. So, I mean, again, you look at his stats, he has 12 points in 47 games, 30 years old, just turned 30, 20 minutes average ice time. He's really having a resurgence. I mean, given his contract and things like that, he's having an interesting year for sure. And as you think about what it means for the Winnipeg Jets, you look at another report here from Jay Stoller. They definitely have interest in Rasmus Ristolainen, and that dates back to several years from JL Stoller. So there's a lot of buzz circulating the Winnipeg Jets and just their idea of making a move. And that's not something that you see too often with Winnipeg. Usually they're fairly tight-lipped. Obviously a smaller market team, at least when it comes to making huge splashes and huge signings. It becomes very interesting now that Elliot Friedman's starting to link some players. I think a move could get done sooner than later. Now, whether or not it's Rasmus Ristolainen is up in the air, but things are really starting to pick up here, and it's getting a little bit interesting.
Yeah, and coming into this season, and as the season has progressed, we know what the Jets' needs are. And then when you look at the defensemen, right, nobody's really been throwing any names out there in terms of who the Jets could get. But with these reports, I mean, Friedman's saying they could use a D. They're looking for a D. And then the fourth period, and David Pagnotta come out and say, it's Rasmus Ristolainen. And then obviously here, this report that it is Rasmus Ristolainen, and they have been looking at him for some time. So it looks like he is the guy. It looks like he absolutely is the guy that they're targeting. And again, big body, interesting season like you brought up. If we take a look at his stats one more time, I mean, he's averaging quite a bit of ice time with the Flyers right now. Again, they're not the greatest team, but averaging a lot of ice time. He's a big body, 6'4", right? He likes to throw the body around as well. He's a physical defenseman. Again, he's not going to put up points or anything, but the Jets have a lot of offense from their back end. They don't need to add another guy who is an offensively minded defenseman. Again, he's 30 years old. It's not like it's anything egregious where he's 34, 35, something like that. So he's a guy that, maybe the Jets wouldn't mind adding. I know a lot of Jets fans are probably looking like, we don't want another Logan Stanley, like literally another Logan Stanley, but he's another guy who's turned the corner a little bit. He can be a shutdown force. He likes to throw the body. That's what you need to do in the playoffs. And I think the Jets have more than enough offense already coming from their blue line.
Yeah, he's definitely better than Logan Stanley. And you look at his JFresh chart, he's actually having an extremely good year. And again, he had a down year last year. You can look at the offense versus defense war chart there at the bottom. He's having a solid year. Again, it's interesting. And he's, whether or not the cap hits a big deal, 5.1 over 3. That's the big difference. And if we're comparing him to Logan Stanley, he's making $5 million a year. We're obviously in a bit of a rough spot there. And you can see this here from Danny Briere. Teams have called to inquire, but Risto has been so good for us. He's not a rental. We're in no rush to trade him. I'm not shopping him. I'm not trying to get rid of him. So that's another thing to keep in mind here. Now, again, whether or not it's Ristolainen is still up in the air. GMs do say this all the time and then trade the players. So take that with a grain of salt. And if they do get a good offer for Ristolainen, they'll, I'm sure, at least heavily and strongly entertain it. So it's, he's a solid player and is really gaining traction. You look at some of his other charts here. He definitely has improved his game under Brad Shaw, especially defensively. Ristolainen is a top 4 defensive defenseman now and great at the PK. And when you look at what the Jets can, we're obviously focusing on defense here. When you're looking at what they can do to improve, Ristolainen, although there'd be some, reservations from Jets fans, I think at first, he could be a solid guy. He's not going to put up points. They already have Josh Morrissey for that. They have Neil Pionk for that. They have their guys. So I don't hate it. I don't love it though. I don't love it either. I think there's other options that could be a little bit safer, maybe fit a little bit better. But this is the guy that they've been heavily linked to. So it is what it is on that front.
There's something about his game that they like, that they want to acquire here. I don't know exactly what it is, but again, I don't think this is a bad defenseman anymore. I think a lot of people, staple his name to the Buffalo Sabres when he was there and how bad they were and how bad he was on that team. But since coming to the Flyers and since some of the coaching changes, like you mentioned, he's turned the corner a little bit. You can see some of the stats, obviously, and not just stats in terms of assists and goals, but his advanced analytics. He's turned the corner a little bit. He's more of an effective defensive defenseman now, and I think a lot of teams are looking for that. I feel like the only reason he's not in more trade rumors is because of his cap hit still, right? 5.1. That's a little daunting. So the Jets might have to make, something work here with obviously maybe draft picks, sweeten the pot a little bit to see if Philly retains some salary. You can't take on too much salary, especially if you want to make a couple moves. So that's something, to keep in mind too. But I don't think this is a bad defenseman. I think this is a guy that can actually come in and really complement the rest of the defense pairings and defensemen on this team, because the Jets have a lot, like I said, of offensively minded defensemen. And this is a guy who's pretty much the complete opposite, right? And could add more of what you need in the playoffs. So I think it's an interesting fit, that's for sure. I don't know exactly how he fits in on the defense core, but I think it's something that they're definitely looking into, and they probably should, because they got to shore up at least one more piece on that defense core.
Yeah, let us know down below also what kind of centers. We'll have another video on that, of course, coming up as they get linked to more. But what kind of center you think they're going for as well as let us know. Do you think Rasmus Ristolainen would be a good acquisition? I'm going to lean on the side of no, but there is something that they like about him, and that's ultimately why they're doing all of this due diligence. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know what your thoughts are. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. See you guys later.